I think that giving up, for me at least, when it comes to Jasmy as of right now, would be a very bad idea. Even though that's not financial advice, the reason being is because I believe that Jasmy could hypothetically go to the price of $1 during this run. And some people may find this hard to believe because they're like, wow, take a look at Jasmy. It's not doing the best. Take a look at the pullback. Well, in my opinion, I just think that the market that Jasmy is focused on is too good. Think about this, right? The data storage market, it's been working very well. Usually, mostly, right? A lot of these data storage solutions, they are very centralized. However, when it comes to Jasmy, it's trying to revolutionize that. Even though nothing I say is financial advice, let's just think about this in a broader sense. When we take a look at centralized data storage, some people out there, they may not want their data to be in a centralized manner. Not to mention, when it comes to centralized data storage, many people would argue sometimes that, hey, there's these multiple single points of failures. Also, on top of that, they would argue that in some cases, it is controlled by a single entity. So again, I'm not necessarily saying that this is the end-all be-all because, of course, it's been working for a very long time. But when you take a look at Jasmy, it's quite essentially attempting to step in and save the day because through decentralization, all of these drawbacks, they're pretty much gone. Now, it's been noted that when it comes to decentralization, it's not going to be something that's going to happen very quickly. And I do agree with that because when it comes to mass scale adoption, this type of stuff takes years. We're not going to see that when it comes to Jasmy in the next 6 to 10 months. But you know what? Despite the price pullback, despite all this, I don't think that it's really going to matter in the long term because, first of all, what I've noticed is that typically people in this space, they forget kind of quickly in a sense that they don't really dwell on the past, which I do like. Also, not to mention, people usually care about the narrative. They care about the story. They care about what something could be. And when it comes to Jasmy, it does tick that box because when you take a look at it, there's a lot of anticipation when it comes to data storage. Think about how previously we saw hype for NFTs, DeFi, blockchain gaming. We saw it for AI. And don't get me wrong, right? We're still going to see it moving forward. However, a market that really hasn't taken off yet is, again, these projects that are focused on data storage. So I still do think that really Jasmy is focused on a market that actually is very amazing. Not to mention, it really hasn't gained that mass attraction yet. So I do believe that Jasmy is in this very fantastic position. Not to mention, when people usually think about the data storage space, in some cases, they can't really name more than two, right? Sometimes people say Filecoin, but really beyond that, sometimes they say Jasmy, but really, many people don't know something like Arweave or like Storage or JasmyCoin exist. So the way I view it is that this market is still really on the rise, so to speak, right? It's not a market that's oversaturated. It's not a market with like 20 or 30 dynamic competitors like what we see sometimes in the case of other markets, like for instance, NFTs, blockchain gaming or DeFi. It's not this oversaturated market, quote unquote, yet that already has kind of a lot of competitors in it. Again, this isn't the case. And I think the reason being is because when people take a look at Jasmy, when they take a look at data storage, it seems kind of boring, right? So I think a lot of developers, they're probably a little bit apprehensive to enter in this space for quite a while at least. Because I think that a lot of them probably thought that, okay, we're going to put a lot of resources, we're going to put a lot of time, effort, we're going to put a lot of this energy, so to speak, right, to create a project. And then we make a data storage project that really is kind of a quote unquote boring market, especially in the past, we saw that, right? Not to mention, the market doesn't really have that much hype. I think a lot of developers were probably thinking, okay, instead of dedicating our time to do that, why not make a project in other sectors like, for instance, NFTs, DeFi, blockchain gaming. So I think that's why we saw those markets really do well, also much like AI. But then again, because that happened, I think if anything, it's a blessing in disguise when it comes to Jasmy. So the way I view it is that really this could be something special because take a look at the data storage market. According to Fortune Business Insights, its market size is expected to be worth nearly $800 billion by 2030. Now again, this data is not for 2025 or 2026 let alone, right? That's not the case. And 2030, I get it's still 5 years away pretty much at this point. But the way I view it is that, again, when people take a look at stuff like this, they care about the narrative. Like for instance, when people take a look at some layer one blockchains, like we take a look at Avalanche, Algorand, or anything like that, it's not like their adoption is world-class or anything like that. It's not like it's the best of all time, but then still they're doing very well. And I think the reason is because a lot of people care about the story. They care about, again, what something could be. And when it comes to Jasmy, it does have those boxes ticked. And think about this, right? Why could decentralization be amazing? It's because in some cases we've seen that, these very centralized entities in some cases, when they become very famous, when they become very popular, in some cases, again, they could become targets, right? In a sense that sometimes, they get breached or like, there's like a data mishap or whatever. And again, we've seen that in some cases, at least I have. However, through decentralization, the way to take a look at it is that no matter how massive the entity becomes or anything like that, it's not like it's going to be this very easy thing to breach because, as we all know, the more decentralized something is, hypothetically, the less susceptible it is to potential hacks or attacks. So the way to take a look at it is that when it comes to something like Jasmy, it has the right concept. Now, not to mention, Jasmy is stated in some cases to be the Bitcoin of Japan. What do I mean by that? Jasmy is the first ever legally compliant cryptocurrency in Japan, so that's why people call it that. Now, Jasmy, keep in mind, in my opinion, is never going to defeat Bitcoin. It shouldn't be considered as something like Bitcoin, and not to mention, it's never going to see the fans and hype. But again, it's just kind of the nickname. You know what I mean? It's kind of like something that people say, hey, this could be something like that in a sense, but then not really, right? It's just kind of like a metaphor, a figure of speech. But then I do like that because that holds a lot of value. Yeah, sure, Filecoin, Arweave, Sidecoin Storage, they're good projects, but are they the first ever legally compliant cryptocurrency in Japan? That's just the way to take a look at it. So when it comes to Jasmy, it does hold this very unique position. And in some cases, right, we see some projects, but the leadership is like a little bit 50-50. Like we don't know sometimes who's running it. But when it comes to Jasmy, they're very transparent in this case. We've seen that many of Jasmy's executives, or should I say part of their team, right, many members of it, are people who used to work at places like Sony or KPMG. KPMG is one of the big four accounting firms, by the way. So the way I view it is that Jasmy, it has the boxes ticked as opposed to some other projects that don't have that. I think that when it comes to Jasmy, again, it has the prerequisites for something that could very well do good during a fully fledged bull run, but only time will tell. Usually altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they do peak around a year and a half after a Bitcoin halving event. Now, again, this is based off history, but when we do some basic math, a year and a half from the last Bitcoin halving event, which happened in April of last year, would actually mean October of this year, give or take around that time, because there's no surefire date. Each cycle is going to be different. There's going to be a different sentiment each cycle. I totally understand that. But again, I'm going to pay attention to near the end of 2025. Only time will tell, though, again. But I'm still very bullish on Jasmy, and I think it's a bad idea for me to give up on it, quite frankly, because $1 is still my price target for this bull run. And if it were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $50 billion, which is around a 55x from here. I don't think it's too bad, right? We've seen BNB over double this. We've seen Dogecoin exceed this by over $30 billion in market cap. And this was all back in 2021, but I'm just saying, this doesn't seem too much to ask for. Even XRP, as of right now, has a current market cap that is around 3 times this. So again, I don't think it's too much to ask for, and we're not even in a fully fledged bull run yet, and XRP is already doing that. So again, when it comes to Jasmy, $1 really wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, and I'm clearly not going to give up when it comes to this. And make sure to subscribe if you gained value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's only the Captain, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.